Hello everyone, welcome back to AMTV News. I am your anchor, Topher Morrison. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2013, and in our first story today, it has as much to do with domestic politics as it does foreign. The question is, how do you know that you're not an anti-Semite? I don't necessarily support Zionism myself. The health and expansion of the Jewish state bears no relevance, in my view, to the country in which I live. Quite the contrary, actually. I generally subscribe to the Washingtonian and Jeffersonian view that trade with all and alliances with none will protect us from favoritism and becoming involved in the political affairs of other nations. I don't support sending money overseas to foreign governments for any reason, let alone to help Israel defend itself. Some would call that being anti-Israeli. But I'm not an anti-Semite because of it, am I? Well, some would say so.
Over 500 participants traveled from 50 countries representing 6 religions have gathered in Jerusalem to discuss a growing epidemic in way too many places, anti-Semitism.
My message for you today is do, speak, shout. Don't be silent facing lies. Israel has a special responsibility for the Jews in the diaspora, and Israel is going to take this responsibility to help Jews facing anti-Semitism anywhere around the world. At the end of the day, anti-Semitism persists in various forms, but it's always about delegitimizing the Jew and then attacking the Jew. And the one way to fight against it is to speak out loud and clear and tell the truth again and again and again. Our biggest task is to fight the delegitimization of Israel, because modern anti-Semitism is being anti-Israel.
And in geopolitical news, who are the terrorists in Turkey? Protests have now gripped Turkey, spreading from Istanbul to the capital of Ankara. Kind of sounds like low-level terrorism, doesn't it? That's how the Pentagon sees exercising your civil liberties. Now, Prime Minister Erdogan, as AMTV reported yesterday, sees the protesters in Turkey driven by external forces bent on harming the country. And now he goes one step further to claim anti-government protesters are, quote, arm in arm with terrorism. In reality, Mr. Erdogan, your people don't like you threatening to take away their booze and cigarettes. And it looks as though, not so ironically, they don't like your support of terrorism either, what the Western world and media still insist on calling simply the Syrian rebellion. At least we've graduated from innocent democratic protesters. Now, nearly 61% of Turks say restricting alcohols and innovation into their way of life, and a near supermajority, 71%, think Erdogan's policy in Syria is wrong. So what sparked all of this? Evidently, it was over leveling the last greened open space in Istanbul for a shopping mall, to benefit not only of a mayor, but Erdogan's son-in-law, both of whom have interests in property development. Evidently, you can tack on eminent domain issues as well. In our last story, in military news, McCain busted again for his dubious friends. Remember when John McCain stood in Benghazi just feet away from where a man was beheaded days earlier and claimed the Libyan rebels were not Al-Qaeda, but freedom-loving patriots? Do you remember that? Well, remember when he snuck into Syria over Memorial Day in violation of that country's law to meet with rebel commanders? Well, it turns out AMTV's suspicions were correct. McCain's new friends aren't exactly the people American taxpayers would like him to be rubbing elbows with.
Last week, after Senator John McCain traveled to Syria, we spent a lot of time looking at this picture, the senator posing and smiling with a group of Syrian men. Men who to most Americans were completely anonymous. But as we told you last week, it turns out that according to a Lebanese newspaper, this man's name is Mohammed Noor, and he is allegedly associated with a Syrian rebel group who kidnapped 11 Lebanese religious pilgrims last May. McCain's office has called the photo regrettable, but he was back at it this weekend, defending not only his position to arm rebels, but the character of the rebels themselves.
They are not Al-Qaeda, they're not extremists. I met with some 19 battalion commanders, both in Turkey and in Syria, but they're badly outgunned now. So I met them. General Idris, who is the commander of the military inside Syria, escorted me in and out. He's a fine leader.
Now, John McCain's trip to Syria became defined in many ways by this picture and the reports about this man, because they almost perfectly encapsulate the many problems with arming the rebels.
Not only that, but it's really hard to pick sides when both are using chemical weapons. But even then, no international laws have been broken because Syria isn't a signatory on any of the applicable chemical weapons treaties. The international community, including the Russians, might be best served by letting these guys fight it out among themselves. But how likely is that to happen?
We say that there are reasonable grounds to believe that chemical agents, toxic chemicals, have been used in the Syrian conflict by both sides. We have evidence of 4 cases on the government side, 1 case on the opposition side. This is just what the people we have interviewed have been able to tell us.
Capturing every corner of the alternative media, watch AMTV News Monday through Friday. Follow me on Twitter at AMTV News and like us on Facebook at Greenwave TV. Find my source material and more videos like these at AMTV Media and greenwave.com. Both are part of the AMTV network. This is AMTV News, the voice of independence.